What's up YouTube, and welcome to Valbos and my first video where I'm going to be talking about what should you train, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu or Judo. So if you're the person who's looking for a martial art that fits you the most and you find out that grappling is the one that fits you the most, then of course the main ones are Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and Judo. Of course you also have wrestling, grappling, so on and so forth, but because these are pretty important ones, and I've trained both of them quite consistently for some time, I can tell you more or less what to expect from them. So normally when people choose a martial art, they sometimes don't care about how practical it is. They don't care really, they just do it pretty much for entertainment as a sport. But lots of people who practice this art, they worry about whether it be sufficient enough to defend yourself on the streets. So to answer this question, I'm going to answer four main important questions. So the first one is, which one is more practical? This is an interesting question since it depends what practical really is. If practical, I guess, would be which one is more efficient for a street fight, I would say you have to analyze the styles first and see how can that adapt to a real life situation. So if you type on YouTube an IBJJF fight or a Judo Olympic match, you'll definitely see the main difference. You'll see the BJJ guys, they immediately start sitting, they start pulling guard, they start trying these crazy techniques, which might seem crazy for somebody who's not familiar with them. And you start to see a judo match, and nobody from the judokas is trying to go to the ground, basically. So that's the main difference. BJJ guys, they don't care going to the mat. They don't care being taken down because their main specialty is guard techniques, sweeps, submissions. But judokas, all they want to do is just throw you and forget about you. So bringing this to a real life situation, I wouldn't personally recommend you pull guard in the street if you are fighting somebody. You can do, provided that your opponent is unarmed and unexperienced, but if you are looking for a quick, let's say a quick reaction, then I would definitely recommend Judo, because all you do is simply throw your opponent and you forget about him. You don't lose any visibility, and you're self-aware what's going around you, because if you try to pull guard and try these techniques on somebody, you're losing mobility and you're losing visibility, because imagine if somebody else joins the fight. You're on the ground trying maybe your sweeps, your berimbolo, your dell'arriva. That's not going to work. So that's one of the reasons why I started training BJJ, but then I transitioned to Judo, because I wanted to try to taste this different style. Because I thought, looking at the Judo throws, it's something that is missing in the BJJ game. Depending on the academy, of course, some BJJ academies do train throws, but like I said, most of them, they don't train throws extensively. And in grappling, of course, which is no gi, BJJ no gi, the throw types are wrestling oriented. But still, if you watch the high-level competitions in BJJ from important athletes like Rafa Mendes, Miguel, they just immediately pull guard and try berimbolo, taking the back, and that's it. Definitely, I wouldn't recommend this for a street fight. So practicality, on the one sense, is Judo, the winner in this case. If you're gonna use ground fighting techniques on a street fight, you have to be there as the least possible. You cannot be on the ground for a very long time, otherwise, like I said, you have no mobility, you have no visibility. So this is why, in this sense, Judo is more practical. However, if you are being taken down in a street fight, then you have no other choice than to use Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu techniques or some of the Judo techniques on the ground. The next question is, which one has a wider range of techniques? Here, briefly, I would say Judo is the winner, slight winner. I'm not saying it's a clear winner, but you will see that many BJJ techniques will be applied on Judo. Of course, the guard techniques from BJJ usually will not be applied on Judo, even though there are a lot of judokas that use the close guard. They may use some spider guard variations, some sweeps, but a lot of them don't use them. The reason why I say Judo has a wider range of techniques because they have so many throws. That's number one. And on the ground, they have a huge variation of ground techniques in the sense that they especially focus on escaping techniques, pinning techniques, and of course submissions. So a lot of the escapes that you learn in Judo sometimes are not learned in BJJ. The main problem with BJJ is that their focus is heavily reliant upon sweeping techniques, guard techniques, berimbolos, but if somebody passes your guard and you don't know how to recover from it, a judoka may actually have the advantage here because they not only train these techniques extensively, but it's a requirement when they pass belt tests. They need to learn escapes. So a judo guy, it will be familiar with this kind of situations. Like I said, submissions in judo are quite extensive as well, even though, like I said, competition rules have been changing for judo quite lately, which is something I'm going to be talking about. But why is judo the winner here? Like I said, simply because they have a great combination of throwing techniques and ground techniques. Well, BJJ has countless of ground techniques, but hardly not a big focus on throwing techniques. The next one is which one has more realistic competition rules. Another important aspect. You know, when I transitioned from BJJ to Judo, and of course I usually jump back and forth depending on the situation. If I find a BJJ academy, I also join and train. But when I started training Judo, I was definitely happy in the sense that, you know, I learned throwing techniques which are really practical for the street fight. But then when I took a look at the rules that are in Judo right now, the fact that some of the throws like kataguruma or some submissions are not allowed anymore, then I was starting to look at Judo a bit different. I was kind of disappointed there because the fact that throws like kataguruma or double leg takedowns are no longer allowed in Judo is a bit of disappointing because if a judoka doesn't train those techniques, a wrestler does train those techniques extensively, and imagine if a judoka encounters a wrestler in a street fight, that he might be in a surprise when he's gonna get when he has to defend the double leg or the single leg takedown. And of course, a lot of judo ground techniques in the sense submissions particularly are not allowed. I think you cannot do a kimura submission no longer. You cannot do any knee bars or footlocks. I don't personally use knee bars and footlocks. I prefer to use other techniques. But judo, on the one hand, has disappointed that it had many extensive throwing techniques before. I think it was before 2012 in the Olympics where they still allowed double leg takedowns and all that crazy stuff. But this is no longer allowed. And I understand it. So because they want to make judo look similar to judo and not to wrestling. BJJ, on the other hand, is the clear winner here. In BJJ, you can do any throw, you can do any submission. Of course, like heel hooks are not allowed in IBJJF, for example. But you can do any throw, you can do any sweep. Nobody's gonna stop you from trying a lot of these techniques. And the other thing that I want to talk about is that a judo fight ends when you do an ippon, which is you throw your opponent and he lands on his back. In BJJ, that's not the case. BJJ, throwing somebody, no matter how beautiful your throw is, it's only going to be 2 points. In Judo, that means you have won the fight. And I definitely find this not realistic because if I know how to fall in a street fight, even though if I get taken down as a BJJ practitioner on the street, usually I'm not going to stop there because I know how to fall, but that does not mean that I cannot carry on the fight because I can use my BJJ to finish the fight. But in Judo, apparently they don't allow the fight to carry on the ground after a throw. Of course, if the throw is powerful enough, you can actually end the fight on the street. But if it's somebody against who knows how to fall, or the throw wasn't perfect, then definitely it's not a Nippon. So in this sense, I prefer Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu rules. And this is one of the things that I miss when I train Judo, the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu style, the rules. So that's another big difference. So BJJ is less restrictive in this sense, and Judo has been more restrictive recently, which in my opinion is a disappointment. But nevertheless, it's still a good art to train. And finally, so in this sense, which one is safer to train? That's a good question. Especially it's important if you're looking for an art that you're going to train for the rest of your lifetime. But I would say if you're young in your 20s and 30s, I would recommend training both of them because it really complements you as a grappler. And you are in an advantage if you train both of these arts. Definitely you are in an advantage. However, and I must point this out, Judo is going to be slightly more aggressive and brutal because the way you see the style is people throwing each other and people falling and injuring themselves. That's one of the reasons why Judo is not as safe as Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I'm not saying you're not going to get injured in a BJJ fight, but you're more likely to get injured in a Judo fight because you're constantly falling. You might not fall properly. You might injure your shoulder or something else. It's definitely more brutal, and if you're looking for an art to train where you are less likely to get injured, I would definitely go for Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. But if you are young and energetic, I would train both of them. But like I said, I've experienced personally more injuries in Judo than in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I've trained Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu for three years, and I trained Judo for about 1 year, and I have to say in that 1 year I injured myself more times than in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu simply because of the falling and the aggressiveness. While in BJJ, since you're pulling guard and you're fighting from the ground, you don't have that scenario. So safety, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is the winner here, but I'm not discouraging you to train Judo because it's a really, really good complement for your grappling style. So I hope this has answered some of your questions because I relate this to my own experience and what I've seen, what I felt during the training, and what I think can help you to develop your grappling style. And here is where I try to summarize this in this short video. So I hope you liked the video. Obviously, give it a like, subscribe, and you can follow me on Instagram as well. And I see you soon in the next video.